Hey there, welcome. You found your way to a cozy corner of the internet where stories unfold slowly, gently, just enough to let your mind wander and drift. For the next hour, I'll be reading a collection of Reddit stories. Real, raw, sometimes funny, sometimes emotional, but always soothing. There's nothing you need to do right now, no decisions to make, no tasks to finish. Just settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let these stories carry you into sleep. Or at least a peaceful state of rest. So take a deep breath and let's begin. Am I the a-hole for exposing my family's darkest secrets after my sister's betrayal? 34F, never thought I'd end up where I am now. If you'd told me a year ago that I'd be standing here writing this, I would have laughed in your face. My life was perfect, or so I thought. I had a beautiful family, a stable job as a therapist, and a strong, loving marriage to my husband, Tom, 36M. But everything changed when I uncovered the truth about my sister, Nina, 32F, and the twisted web of lies our parents had been spinning for years. Let me take you back to where it all began. Nina and I grew up in a seemingly perfect household. Our parents, Grace, 58, and David, 60, were the picture of success. Dad was a well-known lawyer, and Mom was a former socialite turned stay-at-home mother. They threw lavish parties, went on international vacations, and never let anyone see the cracks in the facade. But behind closed doors, things were far from perfect. It wasn't until I became an adult that I started noticing things weren't quite right. Nina and I had always had a distant relationship, but I thought that was just sibling rivalry. We were never close, never really confided in each other, but I always chalked it up to our personalities being different. I was introverted, focused on my career, and driven by a sense of responsibility. Nina, on the other hand, was more outgoing, a natural performer who always seemed to thrive in social settings. As I got older, I realized that our parents favored Nina. It wasn't blatant, but there were always little things, like how Mom would always praise Nina's creativity while brushing off my achievements, or how Dad would take Nina's side in every family argument, even when I was clearly in the right. They never outright said it, but I could feel the favoritism. And the more I excelled in my own life, the more distant I became from them. My relationship with Tom was my anchor. He was my rock, the one person I could always count on. We'd been together for almost 10 years, married for 5, but even he started noticing the tension between me and my family. He'd see how my mum would barely acknowledge me at family events, or how my dad would brush me off with a half-hearted good job when I mentioned something important. At first I tried to shrug it off, telling myself I was being overly sensitive, but deep down, I knew there was something wrong. Then everything came to a head. One weekend, my mom invited me to a family gathering at their house. Nina was already there, and as soon as I walked in, I could feel the energy shift. There was something off about the way Nina looked at me, like she was sizing me up. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but as the evening went on, things got more uncomfortable. After dinner, Nina pulled me aside to talk. She was acting weirdly friendly, overly sweet, and I could sense something wasn't right. She told me she needed my help with something that had to stay between us. That's when she told me something that would change everything. She confessed that she had been having an affair with Tom. For the past 2 years, I felt like I had been hit by a truck. My heart stopped. My hands went clammy. I couldn't breathe. Nina told me the affair had started at a party we had thrown, and it had been going on secretly ever since. She claimed she was in love with him and didn't know how to end it. She said it was complicated and that she didn't want to hurt me. But the damage had already been done. I could barely process her words. My mind was racing and my emotions were spiraling out of control. But I kept my composure. I didn't react the way she expected me to. Instead, I asked her how long she had known, how long this had been going on, and why she was telling me now. She said she couldn't keep it a secret anymore. She said she felt guilty, but she also said she wanted me to understand that it wasn't all her fault. She blamed Tom. She blamed me for driving him away. I was numb. I didn't know what to say. I just walked away, leaving Nina standing there, looking almost satisfied with herself. I went home that night and confronted Tom. He was shocked at first, but after a few minutes of probing, he admitted everything. The affair had started 2 years ago, right around the time we'd started having issues in our marriage. He told me he had been emotionally distant and vulnerable, and Nina had used that against him. He apologized profusely, told me it was a mistake and begged me not to leave him. But I was shattered. I couldn't even look at him. I told him to leave. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My world was falling apart. I knew I had to make a decision, but I didn't know where to begin. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my family, my life, had just been completely upended. The next morning I called Nina. I demanded answers. She told me that she had only wanted what was best for me, and that Tom had never really loved me. She said I was too focused on my career and that I had pushed him away. She kept twisting the narrative, blaming me for everything, for driving both her and Tom to betrayal. She told me I needed to take responsibility for my role in the mess. That's when something snapped inside me. I realized that Nina wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to manipulate me into accepting her actions, trying to make me feel like the villain in my own life. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't guilty. She was entitled to what she had done, and she didn't care who she hurt in the process. Couldn't let this go. I couldn't just let them get away with this. So I made a decision that would forever change the dynamics of my family. I exposed them. I sent an email to our entire family, mom, dad, extended relatives, everyone. I told them everything. The affair, the lies, the manipulation, and the way Nina had twisted the truth. I included text messages between Nina and Tom, screenshots of her messages to me, and even recordings of some conversations she had with our parents, where she spoke about Tom in ways that made it clear this wasn't some random fling, but a calculated effort to destroy my marriage. I also included the lies our parents had been telling me for years, how they'd always subtly supported Nina's toxic behavior, how they'd condoned her manipulation. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. My parents were furious with me. They accused me of airing the family's dirty laundry and ruining Nina's life. My mum screamed at me on the phone, calling me a traitor and a liar. She said I had destroyed Nina's chances of ever having a family. My dad, who I had always thought was the voice of reason, sided with Nina, telling me I should have kept it in the family. He called me vindictive for exposing the truth. Tom begged me to take him back. He apologized again and again, but I was done. I couldn't trust him anymore. I couldn't look at him without seeing Nina's face, without hearing the lies they had told me. The family fractured. Nina and I haven't spoken since. She cut me off completely and hasn't made any attempt to reach out. My parents barely acknowledge me anymore, and when they do, it's always a strained, awkward conversation. So, Reddit after everything. Am I the a-hole for exposing my family's darkest secrets and destroying my family in the process? Am I the a-hole for destroying my sister's career after she tried to sabotage mine? I'm 34F, and my younger sister, Lily, 31F, and I have always had what others might call a complicated relationship. We grew up in a household where appearance, status, and achievement were the holy trinity. Our parents were the kind of people who treated their children like investment portfolios. I was the stable stock, and Lily was the high-risk, high-reward option. I was the steady student, dependable, a bit introverted, always following rules. Lily was the charming hurricane, beautiful, wildly charismatic, and completely impossible to trust. When we were kids, our parents constantly compared us. If I got an A, Lily got applause for trying her best. If Lily bombed a test but won a school talent show, they acted like she cured cancer. When I graduated valedictorian, my mum spent more time fussing over Lily's prom photos. That's the kind of home it was. I learned to be quiet, to keep my head down and do the work because I knew nothing I did would ever shine as brightly as Lily just existing. But I built a life anyway. I graduated from a top college with a double major in marketing and data science. I worked like a dog in entry-level corporate jobs, slowly climbing the ladder over a decade. Eventually, I landed a role as a regional marketing director for a luxury retail brand. It was the culmination of everything I had worked for: intense hours, constant travel, and years of proving myself. I was good at my job. I loved it. I had respect in the industry. And finally, I felt like I had carved out something Lily hadn't touched. Meanwhile, Lily's path was what you'd expect from someone who lived on charm and chaos. She dropped out of college after 2 years, tried being a model, a yoga instructor, even sold crystals online. She dated rich men, burned bridges, went viral on TikTok once for yelling at a barista, and then tried to become an empowerment coach. She never held a job longer than a year, but somehow always managed to land on her feet. About 1.5 years ago, Lily decided she wanted to reinvent herself and go corporate. She called me up one day out of the blue, all sugary and humble, asking for advice about getting into the marketing field. I was skeptical. I told her it was a grind, that people didn't just walk into mid-level roles with no experience. She acted hurt, but thanked me anyway. 3 months later, she shows up at a networking event hosted by my company. She had gotten a junior-level admin position through one of my colleagues who she met through LinkedIn. I didn't even know she'd applied. Apparently, she used her last name. We have different last names due to her going by our mom's maiden. And no one made the connection. I was stunned, but I decided not to make a scene. If she was serious about turning her life around, maybe this was a good thing. But then things got weird. She started showing up in meetings she had no business being in. She accidentally included herself on email chains with senior managers. She hovered around my projects like a fly. People started joking that she was my mini-me, even though I had zero involvement in her hiring or training. I tried to set boundaries gently, but she always played the "just eager to learn" card. Then, 2 months later, one of my campaigns, a major launch for a European brand entering the US market, hit a snag. Confidential budget information had been leaked to a competitor, and it tanked our edge. We lost the exclusivity deal. It cost the company millions, and the blame somehow landed on me. My manager, who'd trusted me for years, suddenly began questioning everything. There was an internal investigation, and while they couldn't prove I leaked anything, my reputation took a massive hit. I was placed on probation and pulled off all major projects. Just like that, 10 years of work were evaporating. Meanwhile, Lily was flourishing. She got reassigned to the team that replaced me. She started speaking in meetings, name-dropping my contacts, referencing strategy ideas that sounded suspiciously like ones I'd drafted. She was suddenly being mentored by an SVP who had previously never given her the time of day. It was like I had been erased and replaced by this polished, cunning version of Lily, wearing my skin, taking my ideas, standing in my place. I started digging. Call it paranoia, call it desperation. But I knew in my gut something was off. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I pulled a copy of a presentation Lily had submitted for a pitch, one she got huge praise for, and compared it to one of my decks from a year prior that had been locked on our internal server. It was identical, slide for slide, word for word. She hadn't even changed the title. She had accessed it from a shared folder she wasn't supposed to have credentials for. I cross-referenced access logs and found her IP logged into the system late at night, using an old login credential from when she briefly interned at another company I'd worked for years ago. I took all of this to HR. It unraveled fast after that. The company opened an ethics investigation. Not only had she plagiarized my work, but IT found evidence that she had been the one who sent confidential info to a competitor using a dummy email traced back to her boyfriend's apartment. It was career sabotage, intentional, malicious. And the only reason she wasn't immediately arrested was that the company wanted to avoid a public scandal. She was fired, quietly, no references, no glowing goodbyes, just gone. But the story doesn't end there. When my parents found out, they lost it on me. They said I had humiliated Lily, that I had destroyed her future, that I should have handled it in the family instead of going to HR. My dad called me a snake in a suit. My mom begged me to fix it, to call the company and ask them to give her a second chance. Lily, for her part, posted vague Instagram stories about betrayal, narcissistic siblings, and women who tear down other women. Several extended relatives stopped talking to me. Even some co-workers who liked Lily's energy and charm said I was too ruthless in how I handled it. I still have my job. My reputation is recovering, slowly. But my relationship with my family, it's in ashes. They still believe Lily was set up, that I couldn't stand to see her succeed, that I was jealous. So, Reddit, after everything. Am I the a-hole for exposing my sister and ending her career before it began, even though she tried to end mine? Am I the a-hole for exposing my husband's double life at my sister's wedding? I 36F. Wish I could say that the last few months of my life have been a blur of love, hope and joy, but that would be a lie. It's been a blur of rage, disbelief and humiliation, and it all started with my sister's wedding. Let me take you back to before everything fell apart. I've been married to Mike, 37M, for almost 12 years. We met in college, fell in love instantly, and got married right after graduation. He was charming, funny, attentive, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. We had the kind of marriage that people envied. At least that's what I thought. We built a life together. I became a successful attorney, and Mike worked in finance. We had a beautiful house, a dog, and a comfortable routine. But underneath the surface, there were cracks in our relationship that I didn't know existed. Over the years, I noticed little things. He'd start spending more time at the office on weekends, cancelling plans last minute, and his phone was constantly buzzing with messages that he'd never let me see. When I asked, he'd always brush it off, say it was work, or just some friends reaching out. I never thought too much of it, mostly because I trusted him. We had a great life after all. Then came my sister's wedding. Lizzie, 30F, my younger sister, had been dating her now husband Aaron for about 2 years before they got engaged. Their wedding was the event of the year in our family. My mum was obsessing over every detail, constantly sending me texts about how perfect the day would be. I was in charge of some of the planning, and Mike and I were set to give a speech. It was all supposed to be perfect. The night before the wedding, I noticed Mike was acting off. He was distant, didn't really engage in conversation, and kept checking his phone. I tried to brush it off as wedding nerves or stress from work, but that evening, when we went to bed, he was on his phone for almost an hour, scrolling, texting, things I couldn't see. I asked who he was texting, and he quickly said it was work stuff and turned the screen away from me. I should have felt uneasy, but I convinced myself it was nothing. The next morning, on the day of Lizzie's wedding, I was running around trying to get everything ready. Mike was still acting strange. He seemed distracted. And then, while I was going through some last-minute arrangements in our guest room, I found something that would change everything, a small black notebook. It was hidden behind some old wedding invites on a shelf. It didn't look like anything special, but something made me pick it up. I opened it, and my heart stopped. The pages were filled with names, dozens of them, dates, locations, and notes written in Mike's handwriting. It looked like some kind of log, but it was more than that. Some of the names were familiar and some I had never heard of. The dates ranged from months ago to just a few weeks earlier. But what really sent me reeling was the last page, which contained a note that said, "Final stop, Lizzie's wedding, no more hiding. I couldn't breathe, my hands shook as I turned the pages." Every name in that book was a woman. Every entry was a date or time they'd spent together. Some of them were from cities we'd visited together as a couple. Some were names I recognized from mutual friends, even family gatherings. But what made my stomach drop was that the last entry before the final stop was a woman I knew very well, Sophie. Sophie was one of Lizzie's bridesmaids. She'd been part of our family's life for years. I'd even invited her to our house for dinner multiple times. She and I had often laughed together, shared stories about our marriages, talked about relationships, and life in general. The fact that Mike had been seeing her right under my nose shattered me. I ran downstairs and found Mike pacing in the kitchen, looking even more jittery than before. I tried to act calm, but the rage bubbling inside me was uncontrollable. I asked him very quietly, "Mike, is there anything you need to tell me?" He froze. His face went pale, and for a moment it felt like the entire world stopped. I didn't even need to say anything more. He knew. He had been caught. The next few minutes were a blur. He tried to explain, at first claiming it was all in the past. that it was just a few casual flings that didn't mean anything. He said he'd lost himself and didn't know how to stop. But then he said something that made my stomach churn. "You don't understand, Rachel. It was never about you. It was about me not being able to control my own desires. I'm sorry, but I couldn't be the man you wanted me to be. I wanted to throw up. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't hear him anymore. He kept apologizing, begging me to forgive him, telling me everything was going to be okay, but I couldn't even process the words. I just stood there, numb, staring at him in disbelief. And then it hit me. We were about to go to Lizzie's wedding. The wedding, where Sophie was going to be in the bridal party. I had to make a decision. I had to confront him or I had to expose everything. But as my emotions whirled, one thought rose above all the others. I couldn't let him get away with this. Not after everything he'd put me through. Not after lying to me for so long. And certainly not after the way he had disrespected my family. I made up my mind. I would expose him. During the reception, everything was going perfectly, or so I thought. People were dancing, laughing, celebrating. It was beautiful. But the more I saw Mike, the more disgusted I felt. His smug smile, his laugh, how he interacted. With everyone, it was all fake. I knew he was just a liar and a cheat. I had to put an end to it. So right after Lizzie gave her speech and the guests started applauding, I stood up. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse it. But I took the microphone, and with a shaky voice, I said, "Before we go any further, I need to say something. Mike, my husband, is not the man you think he is. For the past 2 years, he's been cheating on me with multiple women, including one of Lizzie's bridesmaids. And I'm not going to let him hide behind his charming smile anymore." I looked at Sophie, who was standing by the bar, a glass in her hand. She turned white. Mike's face went red, then pale, and the room went completely silent. For a moment, no one moved, no one spoke. And then the storm came. People were shouting. Lizzie was crying. My parents were furious. Mike was trying to apologize, but his words just made everything worse. People started leaving. Lizzie, heartbroken and furious, accused me of ruining her day, of making it about me instead of her. My mom was livid, screaming at me for embarrassing the family. I felt like I was losing everything. My marriage, my family, my reputation. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for exposing my husband's double life, ruining my sister's wedding, and breaking apart my family in the process? Am I the a-hole for exposing my sister's biggest secret at her wedding and destroying our entire family dynamic? This is going to be long, complicated, and probably paint me in a bad light. I know that. I've sat with this for weeks now, and after watching the dust settle around the crater I helped create, I can't stop wondering if I truly did the wrong thing, or if I was just the first person to stop pretending. So here goes. I, 36M, come from what people in our town used to call a perfect family. My parents are still married after 40 years. My dad's a retired firefighter. My mum was a middle school librarian. We're from a smallish New England town where reputation matters and everyone knows everyone. I'm the oldest of 3. My brother Jason is 33 and my sister Emma is 30. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Jason was the rebel, Emma was the princess. Not just figuratively, she was always treated like she could do no wrong. Even when she did do wrong, my parents would either find a way to excuse it or spin it into something noble. Emma crashed Mom's car in high school while drunk, and they blamed her friends for letting her drink. She stole from a local boutique once, and my parents convinced the owner not to press charges, saying she was going through a phase. She cheated on every boyfriend she ever had, but somehow they were always the jerks. Meanwhile, when Jason got a DUI at 22, they kicked him out of the house. When I admitted I was bisexual at 19, I got the silent treatment for 3 months and was told not to tell my grandparents because it would kill them. But Emma? She stayed the golden child, even into adulthood. I moved away at 25 and rarely came home. Jason stayed local, working odd jobs, never really settled down. Emma became a dental hygienist and eventually got engaged to a guy named Drew, a mild-mannered, somewhat awkward software engineer she met at a mutual friend's wedding. I met him once. He seemed fine. Not exactly thrilling, but stable. Steady. And I assumed that's what Emma was going for. Fast forward to last summer. Emma and Drew set a wedding date for October and invited 200 people, including a lot of extended family, town officials, and people my parents wanted to impress. It was clear they were treating the wedding like some grand social event, not just a union. My parents paid for almost all of it, and my mom kept referring to it as the event of the decade. Here's where the story begins to unravel. In June, I came back to town for a week to help my dad after a minor surgery. During that visit, I reconnected with Jason. We grabbed drinks, caught up, and he told me something that dropped my stomach through the floor. He said Emma was cheating on Drew. Not just a one-time thing, a 2-year-long affair with her ex-boyfriend Tyler, who still lived in town and who she met up with whenever she could. Jason said he'd found out by accident, having walked in on them together when he went to Emma's house to borrow tools one day. She'd sworn him to secrecy, guilted him, called him a liar when he threatened to tell our parents, and basically manipulated him into silence. And he kept that silence until now. He told me he couldn't carry the weight of it anymore. That he was sickened watching Drew play the doting fiancé, pouring money and love into a woman who was lying through her teeth. He said he was torn between his conscience and his fear of blowing up the family, of becoming public enemy number one, of our parents disowning him. I asked if he was sure. He showed me text messages Emma had accidentally sent to him, intended for Tyler, and then a picture Emma and Tyler kissing in a booth at a bar just 2 weeks prior. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to believe it wasn't true. I told myself it wasn't my business. But as the weeks passed and the wedding drew closer, I couldn't stop thinking about Drew. I barely knew the guy, but he was about to commit his life to someone who was lying every single day. And Emma wasn't stopping. Jason told me she'd just gone to Tyler's cabin the weekend before her bridal shower. I confronted her in private 3 weeks before the wedding. I didn't attack, I asked, calmly. She denied it. When I mentioned the texts and the photos, she lost it. Said Jason was jealous of her happiness, that I was just bitter because our parents loved her more, that I didn't understand the pressure she was under to marry right after messing up so many times. She admitted she'd made mistakes, but swore she was going to end things with Tyler after the honeymoon. That Drew didn't need to know. I walked out. I didn't respond to her follow-up texts. I told Jason I wouldn't stay silent. He begged me not to go nuclear, said we should wait. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not again. I'd spent my whole life watching this family bury things to keep the peace, to protect Emma's image. I wasn't going to be complicit in this, so at the wedding, during the reception, I gave a toast. It started normal. I complimented Drew, talked about growing up with Emma, made people laugh. Then I said, I always believed that marriage should be built on honesty, on loyalty, on truth. So I hope my sister will finally find the strength to tell Drew the truth, about Tyler, about the affair, about everything she's kept hidden for the last 2 years. Dead. Silence. Emma's face turned, white, then red. Drew looked confused. My mom gasped. Jason stood up and tried to stop me, but I kept going. I laid it bare, told everyone that Emma had been cheating, lying, manipulating, that I'd confronted her and she admitted it. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just told the truth. All. Hell broke loose. Emma screamed. My mum sobbed. My dad tried to drag me out. Drew walked out without saying a word. Guests started murmuring and leaving. It was chaos. Emma lunged at me and had to be restrained by her bridesmaids. My parents disowned. Me on the spot, in front of everyone. Jason vanished into the crowd. The wedding was ruined. Drew never came back. I later found out he cancelled the honeymoon and filed for an annulment. Emma tried to spin it as me being a jealous, mentally unstable brother. But by then the texts and pictures had leaked. Everyone knew the fallout was massive. It's been 3 months. I haven't spoken to Emma or my parents. Jason thanked me privately but won't speak about it publicly. My extended family is torn. Some support me, some say I should have handled it differently. I've lost nearly every connection I had back home. But Drew, he messaged me. He said thank you. that I saved him from a life of lies, that he would have spent years trying to figure out why he never felt enough while Emma continued to betray him. That meant something. Still, I wonder, did I go too far? Should I have handled it privately? Was it really my place to do what I did, even if it felt morally right? So tell me, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for refusing to give up my inheritance to my half-brother after learning the secret my father took to his grave? I, 34M, never thought I'd be the type to write one of these, but the last 6 months of my life have flipped so completely upside down that I don't know what's right or wrong anymore. I need perspective. I need to know if I've become the villain without realizing it. So here goes. I grew up as an only child. My dad, Robert, was a quiet, serious man. Former Davy, all discipline and rules. He wasn't warm, but he was dependable. My mom left when I was 5. She ran off with some guy she met at work and didn't look back. I barely remember her, and Dad never talked about her again. It was just the two of us. He raised me with structure, chores, expectations. He paid for my college, showed up to every graduation and award ceremony, but he never said he loved me. Still, I respected him. I knew he'd sacrificed a lot for me. I thought I knew who he was. He passed away suddenly last October, heart attack while gardening. I was the one who found him. The days that followed were a blur of grief, funeral arrangements, condolences from people who described him as a good man and a pillar of the community. I believed them. I had no reason not to. Then, while sorting through his legal documents and belongings, I found something that cracked the ground under me. A letter, handwritten, sealed, addressed to me. It started off simple. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. Typical stuff. But then it turned into a confession. He told me that I wasn't his only child, that he had a son, older than me, from an affair he had before I was born. The affair wasn't with my mom. It was with a woman named Marissa, someone he met while stationed in another state. She got pregnant and he panicked. He stayed in touch with her for a few years, sending money occasionally, but eventually he severed contact. He said he was too ashamed to bring the truth into his life, that he tried to bury it, that he didn't want his mistake to ruin my future. He asked me, begged me, not to judge him too harshly. And then he wrote something I still can't make peace with. If you can find your brother and make peace, do it. It's a debt I could never pay. Along with the letter, he included a name, Aaron. That was it. No last name, no address. Just Aaron, born 1986. I didn't know what to do. I told my wife, and she encouraged me to look into it. You deserve to know, she said. So I started digging. It took weeks, but I eventually found him. Aaron, 30s, lives 2 states. Away, works as a mechanic, single, no kids. I reached out via Facebook explaining I had important information about his father. He agreed to meet. That meeting, I don't even know how to describe it. He looked like me. Taller, heavier, older, but the same jawline, same dark hair, same way of squinting when thinking. He was guarded at first, thought I was running a scam. But when I showed him the letter, he got quiet. He didn't cry. He just nodded and said, I always suspected. Turns out his mother never lied to him. She told him his dad was a Navy man who bailed, that he tried to stay in touch for a while, but eventually disappeared. Aaron spent years wondering why. He wasn't good enough, why his father chose a new family over him. He said he stopped caring eventually, but the bitterness was still there. I could feel it under the surface. We stayed in touch after that. Tentative, careful conversations. I offered to help him get closure, told him more about our dad. He asked if he could visit the house, Dad's house, which I had inherited in the will. I agreed. He came down in December. He was quiet the whole visit, but I caught him staring at pictures of my dad, looking at the medals, touching the books on the shelf like they meant something. Then came the issue of the inheritance. My dad left everything to me. The house, the savings, around 180,000, the car, everything. His will hadn't been updated in years, obviously, and he never made provisions for Aaron. I felt guilty, but also confused. Legally, I owed Aaron nothing, but morally, emotionally, I didn't know. Aaron didn't bring it up directly, he just made little comments. How our dad never helped him. How different things might have been if he'd had that money for school. For his daughter, surprise, turns out he has a 10-year-old he's raising alone, for stability. I told him I was sorry. He nodded and said, "It's not your fault, but it's not fair either." That stuck with me. Eventually, he asked if I would consider splitting the inheritance, not 50-50. He said even 50K would change his life. Help him move out of the crummy apartment, fix up his truck, start a college fund for his daughter. I told him I needed time to think. My wife was dead set against it. "Your father made his choice," she said. "He knew what he was doing. That money is for our family, our kids." I was torn. I still am. I didn't respond for a few weeks. Then, after much deliberation, I told Aaron I couldn't give him any of the inheritance. I said I was sorry for how things turned out, that he didn't deserve the way Dad treated him, but the money was meant for me and my family. I told him I was open to staying in touch and building a relationship. He didn't take it well. He called me a coward. Said I was hiding behind a dead man's decisions to avoid doing the right thing. Said I had a chance to make something right and chose selfishness instead. He told me not to contact him again and blocked me on everything. That was 3 months. Ergo, I haven't heard from him since. I think about it every day. I still feel like I did something wrong, even though my wife says I did the only rational thing. My friends are divided. Some say I was being overly generous, even considering it. Others say I missed a chance to create something meaningful. I look at my kids, my house, my life, and I wonder what Aaron's childhood looked like. I got 2 parents for at least a little while. I got structure, guidance, school opportunities, he got silence, and now I've added to that silence. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for secretly DNA testing my daughter after something my wife said during an argument? I, 36, have been married to my wife, Cassie, 35F, for 10 years. We met in college, fell hard and fast, got married within 3 years, and for most of our relationship I thought we were solid. We had the occasional fight like anyone else, but nothing ever shook my trust in her, until about 8 months ago, when something happened that cracked the foundation of everything I thought I knew. Cassie and I have 1 child, our daughter, Emily, who's now 7. She's bright, sweet, a little shy, and she's my world. I was there when she was born. I remember holding her in that hospital room, crying like a baby myself. I remember the little butterfly birthmark on her hip, the way she immediately calmed when I spoke. I never once questioned that she was mine, until something Cassie blurted out during an argument made my stomach drop through the floor. It started like a regular fight. It was stupid. We were arguing about money. Cassie had made a big purchase without discussing it with me, and I was frustrated. It spiraled from there, as fights sometimes do, and in the heat of the moment Cassie yelled, "You wouldn't even be such a control freak if you knew what was actually yours." I froze. I asked her what she meant. She immediately looked like... She regretted saying it and muttered something like, "Forget it, I didn't mean that." But I couldn't forget it. That one sentence lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. What did she mean by, "if you knew what was actually yours"? Was she talking about our house, our finances? Emily. I didn't ask her outright. Not at first. I think I was afraid of the answer. Instead, I let it sit. For weeks. I found myself watching Emily more closely, wondering if I was imagining that she didn't quite look like me. Her eyes are a different color. Her hair is lighter. Her smile has a crookedness that I couldn't trace to anyone in my family. But then again, kids are kids. Genetics are weird. I knew that. Still, the seed of doubt had been planted. I tried to dismiss it. Told myself I was being paranoid, insecure. I even brought it up in therapy, not in those words, but in terms of trust issues and communication breakdowns. Our couples counselor suggested we work on rebuilding emotional intimacy. That didn't help. Every time I looked at Cassie, I felt like there was a question in the room neither of us was asking. So finally, without telling her, I bought a home paternity test. I hated myself for doing it. I felt like a traitor. But I also felt like I was unraveling. I waited until Cassie and Emily were out one day, grabbed Emily's toothbrush and sent it in with mine. It felt like something out of a crime drama. I didn't sleep for the entire week it took to get the results. When they came, I was shaking. I opened the email, hands cold, heart pounding. The result, 0% probability of paternity. I stared at it for a long time. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I labeled something wrong. But the data was there and it was clear. Emily wasn't biologically mine. The next few days were a blur. I didn't confront Cassie right away. I walked around like a ghost, going through the motions, pretending nothing had changed while inside I was hollow. I'd tuck Emily in at night, kiss her forehead, and wonder whose child I was putting to bed. And then I'd hate myself for thinking that, because she's still my daughter. She didn't change, my love for her didn't change, but the world had shifted underneath me. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I sat Cassie down and told her everything, that I had done a DNA test, that I knew. At first she denied it, cried, screamed, accused me of violating her trust, said I was a monster for testing our daughter without her knowledge. I said I wasn't the one who lied for nearly a decade. That shut her up. Eventually, through sobs and silences, she told me the truth. Back when we were newlyweds, around our first anniversary, we were going through a rough patch. I was working long hours trying to support us. She was lonely. She had a one-night stand with a co-worker, some guy she never saw again. She found out she was pregnant a few weeks later. She never told me because, in her words, it didn't matter. You were always going to be her dad. I wanted to throw something, scream, break everything, but I didn't. I just sat there while the world ended quietly around me. She begged me not to tell anyone, said it would ruin Emily's life, and maybe it would. That's the only reason I haven't said anything to her. I still get up every morning and make her breakfast. I still help with homework and read her stories and braid her hair. She still calls me Daddy. Nothing has changed for her, but everything has changed for me. Cassie and I are in separate bedrooms now. We haven't told Emily anything. I don't know if we ever will. Cassie keeps pushing me to go to therapy together, to try to work through it, but I'm not sure I can. I don't know if I can ever trust her again. I don't even know what our marriage is anymore. And here's where I come to the real question. Am I the a-hole? Not for being angry, not for struggling, but for doing the test in secret, for going behind my wife's back and essentially violating my daughter's privacy. That's what Cassie keeps hammering on, that Emily didn't consent and now I've dragged her into something she didn't choose, that I should have come to her directly if I had concerns. I feel sick with guilt, like I opened Pandora's box and can never close it again. But part of me also feels like I had a right to know the truth, that I deserved to know. If the roles were reversed, if I had cheated and hidden a child from her for nearly a decade, she'd burn the house down. But because I'm the dad, I'm supposed to accept it and move on. Read it, I don't know what to think anymore. I love my daughter, that hasn't changed, but I feel betrayed in a way I can't articulate. And now I'm questioning every part of my marriage, my identity, and my future. So, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for refusing to raise my sister's baby, even though I practically raised her? I, 34M, have always been the responsible one in my family, though I never really had a choice. My parents were not abusive, per se, but they were neglectful in a subtle, insidious way, emotionally absent. They loved the idea of family, of being parents, of having a beautiful household, but in practice they treated us like accessories to their lifestyle. I'm the oldest of three. Then there's my sister Lily, now 25F, and our younger brother Max, 22M. The story centers around Lily and the absolute hurricane that has upended my life in the past few months. It's long and messy, but I need to put it all down and ask, am I the a-hole for what I did? Growing up, I became a third parent early on. When Lily was born, I was just a kid, but I remember changing diapers and feeding her bottles while my mom chain-smoked on the patio, completely checked out. As Lily grew older, I was the one who took her to school, helped her with homework, cooked dinner, and tucked her in when our parents were too busy yelling at each other or ignoring us in favor of their wine and social circle. When Max was born, it was worse. I was 12 by then and full on parent mode. They called me little dad and laughed like it was cute. It wasn't. I was exhausted and angry, but I loved my siblings fiercely. Still do. They became my everything. When I turned 18, I moved out for college and went no contact with my parents for a while. Not out of hate, just to protect myself. But I stayed in close touch with Lily and Max. I sent money when I could, took them on weekend visits, helped them fill out FAFSA and college apps. I did everything I could without fully parenting them because I had to also live my own life. Lily was always the wild card. Bright, charming and creative, but impulsive. She struggled with boundaries. She'd call me at 2 a.m. sobbing about breakups and then disappear for weeks. I chalked it up to her trying to find her identity, which she had every right to do. But it was exhausting. I kept showing up, though. Always. Fast forward to 6 months ago. I'm now married to my incredible wife, Sam, 32F, and we're expecting our first child in about 2 months. We've been prepping like crazy. Nursery, birthing classes, pediatricians, all of it. This baby is something we've wanted for years, and after a few miscarriages, it finally happened. So to say we're emotionally and physically invested would be an understatement. Then Lily calls me out of the blue. She sounds panicked, crying. She says she's pregnant, 8 months along, and she hid it from everyone. The father is apparently some guy she hooked up with at a party who moved overseas. She has no job, no savings, and she's been couch hopping. She'd kept the pregnancy secret under baggy clothes and excuses, and now she doesn't know what to do. She said the only person she could think to call was me. I was stunned and honestly heartbroken. Not because she was pregnant. I believe people can make that work in a million ways. But because she'd been in crisis and hadn't come to me until the very last minute. She said she was scared I'd be disappointed. I told her I wasn't disappointed, but I was overwhelmed. And I was. I felt like I was being dropped into a burning building with a water pistol. I told her I'd help. I meant that. I wasn't going to let her be homeless or give birth alone. She came to live with us temporarily, while we figured things out. Sam was supportive, though cautious. She kept saying, "This feels like a setup for something bigger, and I should have listened." Lily gave birth to a baby girl, beautiful, healthy, perfect. I was there. I held her, I cut the cord, I cried. It was surreal. For a moment it felt like this could work. Like maybe Lily would rise to the occasion. Then things started to fall apart. Within a week of bringing the baby home from the hospital, Lily started disappearing for hours. She'd say she was going to the pharmacy or grocery store and be gone for half the day. Sam and I were taking care of the baby more than she was. Every feeding, every diaper. Every 3 a.m. wake up. She'd sleep through the crying or come home reeking of weed or alcohol. We confronted her gently at first, then more firmly. She cried, apologized, promised to do better. Then she left again the next night. This became a pattern. 2 weeks in, she sat me down and said she couldn't do it. She wasn't cut out to be a mom, that the baby would be better off with someone like me. I froze. I asked her what she meant. She said, you and Sam, you could raise her, give her a good life. You're already doing it. I said no, calmly but firmly. I told her I love her and I love my niece, but Sam and I are about to have our own baby. We can't take on another infant, especially not indefinitely. We're not in a place emotionally or financially to adopt a child we didn't plan for. I reminded her she had options: therapy, social services, even adoption agencies. That could help her find a stable family if she truly couldn't do it. She flipped. She screamed at me, said I was abandoning her, that after everything she'd been through I was leaving her alone, that I raised her, so why not raise this one too? I told her that's exactly why I can't. Because I already spent my childhood being a parent. I can't sacrifice my adulthood the same way. That this baby deserves a parent who wants to be there, not one who was guilted into it. She packed her things in the middle of the night and left the baby with us. No note, no plan, just gone. We called CPS. I didn't want to, but what choice did I have? We legally couldn't keep a baby that wasn't ours without going through the system. They opened a case and we cooperated fully. They placed the baby in emergency foster care with a family nearby. I gave them everything I had: medical records, formula, clothes. Lily didn't return calls. They couldn't even find her for weeks. My parents found out and blasted me, called me a monster, said I'd betrayed my own blood, that I was no better than them, abandoning my family when it mattered most. Sam's been my rock, reminding me daily that we made the right choice. But it's haunted me. A few days ago, Lily reappeared. She showed up at my door sobbing, asking if it was too late to get her baby back. I told her that was between her and the state now, that she needed to get clean, stable, and work with her caseworker. She begged me to fix it. I said I wouldn't, not this time. Now she's telling everyone I gave away her baby without her consent, that I snitched to CPS to punish her. Half my extended family is calling me a traitor, the other half won't talk to me at all. My parents are saying I destroyed my sister and ripped our family apart. I just want to protect my wife and our child, who could be here any day. But I also can't stop replaying it all in my head. Could I have done more? Should I have taken the baby in just for a while? Was there another way? So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to raise my sister's baby, even though I practically raised her? Confession 1. I found out my wife was living a double life for 7 years, and I destroyed everything in one weekend. I never thought I'd be the type of person who writes one of these posts, but I can't keep this inside anymore. It's been 2 months since my life detonated, and I still can't sleep without waking up soaked in sweat, without hearing the echoes of conversations that weren't meant for me. I'm a 38-year-old man, and I was married to a woman I thought I knew better than anyone. Her name is, or was, Claire. We met in college and were together for nearly 15 years, married for 11. We had a house in the suburbs, 2 dogs, plans for kids that we were about to act on. But Claire wasn't who I thought she was, not even close. Claire worked in marketing, which meant lots of client meetings, business trips, and long hours. I never questioned it because I trusted her, because that's what marriage is supposed to be built on, right? Trust. Except that wasn't what she built our marriage on. I found out the truth not because she confessed, not because she slipped up, but because of a fucking dead phone battery. One tiny missed detail in an otherwise meticulously managed lie. It was a Friday evening around 8 p.m., and Claire was supposed to be on a trip in Chicago for work. She texted me earlier saying her flight landed late, and she was going straight to the hotel to crash. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I ordered a pizza, fed the dogs, and was halfway through a documentary when I realized she left her iPad at home. I picked it up to cue a show on Netflix, and that's when everything began to unravel. Her messages were synced to the device, something she'd always turned off before, apparently. And I saw a new conversation at the top with someone saved only as T Curious. I opened it. I wish I hadn't. The messages weren't new. They were the tail end of a long thread that stretched back over 7 years. 7. The earliest messages were tame, catching up. Inside jokes, photos of coffee mugs and sunsets, but the longer I scrolled, the more intimate and revealing they became. Love notes, nude photos, voice recordings, plans to meet, airplane tickets, hotel confirmations, whole fucksing vacations. I didn't know about. The most recent messages were from that same day. T had sent a photo of Claire at a hotel bar, wearing the necklace I'd given her on our 5th anniversary, captioned, "She's finally mine for the weekend. No work, no lies." My blood ran cold. I didn't want to believe it. There. Had to be a mistake. I thought maybe it was a friend or a prank, but the more I read, the more undeniable it became. Claire had a second relationship, a second life, running in parallel with ours. She wasn't in Chicago for work. She was with him. I spent the whole night on that iPad. I read every single message, watched every attached video, screenshotted everything, and sent it to a private folder I created for evidence. Some of the photos made me physically ill. Her in bed with him. Her in a city I'd never been to, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. Her writing things like, "I wish I could just stay here forever and forget who I'm supposed to be at home." Saturday morning, I got up, numb, and started planning. Not revenge. Just clarity. Control. I needed to know how deep this went, what kind of fantasy she'd constructed, and how I could end it. I called in sick to work on Monday in advance. I spent the day going through our shared documents, finances, emails, and that's when I found the second phone bill. An entirely different carrier with charges going back 6 years. She had a second phone I never knew about. I found it in the false bottom of her gym bag later that day. More messages, different apps. Same man. His name was Tom. He was real estate developer in Texas, divorced, no kids. Their messages revealed that he thought she was divorced too. She had told him that our marriage had ended 7 years ago, that we were still living together temporarily, while she sorted out finances, but were done in every real sense. He thought I was the crazy ex who couldn't let go. She had 2 Facebook accounts, 2 sets of friends, a P.O. box in a nearby town, 2 lives. I was living with a stranger and I didn't even know it. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to be precise. I called my lawyer on Sunday and explained everything. I asked him what I could do, what would hold up in court. He told me to keep collecting, stay calm and do nothing that could be interpreted as impulsive or retaliatory. That was the hardest part, staying still while every cell in my body screamed to burn everything down. When Claire got home Sunday night, she acted completely normal. She kissed me on the cheek, handed me a souvenir from the airport and told me her meetings had gone well. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I'm glad you had fun with Tom." Her face went white. She stumbled back like I'd struck her. For a full minute, she didn't speak. Just blinked, lips twitching, her hand still extended with that dumb airport mug. I told her to sit. Then I showed her the iPad, the photos, the messages, everything. She collapsed into the chair like a puppet with its strings cut. She cried, begged, stammered through excuses, said she never meant to hurt me, said it started as a stupid escape, and she didn't know how to stop once. It got serious, that she loved both of us, that she was living in a dream with him and a life with me and didn't know which one was real anymore. I asked her why. She said I was too safe, too predictable, that Tom made her feel young again, that being 2 people made her feel alive, that I'd never understand, that she never planned to leave me because I was her home base. I felt like vomiting. I told her I wanted a divorce. She collapsed again, said she'd give up everything, that she'd go to therapy, that she'd block Tom and delete every app and every account, that it was all fake, just a fantasy. I didn't say anything. I just walked upstairs and slept in the guest room. The next morning I sent the photos and documents to my lawyer, froze our joint accounts, removed her as a beneficiary, changed the passwords to everything. I went nuclear. That week, she moved in with her sister. I told her not to contact me unless it was through a lawyer. She tried. Letters, emails, a voice memo where she sobbed for 8 minutes straight. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every time I hear her voice, I see her messages to him, how she called him husband months before our anniversary. Then Tom contacted me. He found my email from one of the financial records Claire had stupidly shared with him and said he wanted to talk. I agreed. We spoke for 2 hours. He was just as broken. He had proposed to her. She accepted. They were planning a wedding in the Bahamas. She told him she was finalizing the divorce paperwork. She gave him a fake name for me, said I was an alcoholic and abusive. That's why we couldn't live together anymore. He was destroyed. Said he felt like he was in a Lifetime movie. He apologized to me. Said if he'd had any idea, he would have walked away the moment he found out she was married. We both agreed to let the lawyers handle everything, and we haven't spoken since. My divorce was finalized last week. Claire got nothing. I kept the house, the dogs, the cars. My lawyer said it was one of the cleanest breakaways he's ever seen. Ironically, Claire didn't even fight it. I think she knew she'd already lost everything. I don't know what she's doing now. I don't care. I blocked her on everything. I deleted every photo. My bedroom still smells like her perfume sometimes, and I want to rip the walls out. But I'm free, broken but free. If anyone reading this is married, really look at your partner. Look deeper, ask more questions. Not in paranoia, but in awareness. Because love can make you blind to rot until it's already devoured everything. And if you're living a double life, end it. Someone will get hurt. Someone who trusted you. Someone who would have gone to the ends of the earth for you. Don't be like Claire. Don't be like me. Please.